Hey everyone, welcome back to the Godfo Universe podcast. I am Joshua Adams, co-creator of the Godfo Universe, artist of the Godfo Universe comics, and just about anything that you see that's art related in our universe, at least up to this point. That stuff has come from me. I wanted to have a short conversation today, kind of exploring one of the topics that was briefly brought up in Dan and I's last episode when we talked about world building. So, I want to talk today just a little bit about this idea of magic systems in fantasy writing, and uh, if you're writing science fiction, this idea of technology, advanced futuristic technology, which is essentially the same thing as a magic system. So, there are some pitfalls that a lot of authors fall into when it comes to creating a magic system and integrating it into their story. And one of the biggest problems that I've seen, and you read this, you see it in movies and TV shows as well, is this idea where the characters, either the reason they're able to use magic or whatever technology, might as well be magic. It's this sort of Mary Sue, chosen one. The power was in them all along. There's just this inherent natural oneness with the magic that they can just do it. They haven't earned it. They don't understand it. They just do it. And that's lazy writing. The other thing that you see, and it's not that far off, is that the people who can use it, whatever magic system you have, the people that are able to integrate it and engage in it are usually considered masters of it to like the nth degree. And you're either a master of it or you have no concept of it at all. And there's very little in between. And a lot of times, like I said previously, it's that idea that either somebody's just the chosen one, or they were born with it, or they receive some sort of supernatural gifting. They find a MacGuffin that all of a sudden gives it to them, and now that because I have this magic stone, now I can activate whatever. There's a better way to do magic in stories, uh, and that is to see it as a spectrum, the use of it as a spectrum. So I'm gonna give you a real world example, and then we'll branch out from there. But let's take a car. There are plenty of people who drive a car. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people drive cars every day. Most of the people, I would say the vast majority of the people who drive a car and know how to operate a car, could not build one. They don't know how it works. They can't repair it themselves. They don't know how an engine works. They don't know what an alternator does or a carburetor. They wouldn't even be able to show it to you on a diagram. They don't understand how the car works. And yet they can get in that car and drive it. All right, so your magic system is a lot like that. Your mid-tier users of whatever magic or technology you have in a story, there's got to be a spectrum. There are people who are able to use it on some level without really fully understanding it. And then there are the people who can build it, who do understand everything about how it works, or at least a lot about how it works. Maybe because they were there when it was created, who knows? That's up to you to decide, but you should see a spectrum. And by the same token, you can take a child who only understands enough about the car to get behind a wheel and turn it on. And they understand if I step on that thing down there that I've seen an adult step on, the car will go. Now, they don't understand any of the rules of the road. They don't know where they're at in town. They have no sense of direction. They have no experience whatsoever. But they know enough to turn it on and play with it. Now that person, that child behind the wheel, is a threat. That child is dangerous to themselves and everyone else. That should be part of your approach to showing a magic system, is that there are people and characters who only know enough about it to be dangerous. They have no understanding of it. They don't know the rules of it. They know just enough to be dangerous. All right, so another example. Let's take our smartphones. There's so many people who they can take that smartphone and they use it to make phone calls, send messages, use it to watch videos, play games, keep up with their calendar. They have all these apps that they use. And you would look at that person, you would say, well, that person really knows how to use their phone well. All right, but do they? They may know how to use those apps, but they don't know how that programming works. They don't know how I don't know how my phone works. I know that somebody who did know about it curated that operating system and curated it for people like me to be able to do things with it that I would never have been able to figure out if they didn't make it simple for me, if they didn't put that little box there and tell me what to do. If it was just code, I wouldn't understand it, neither would most of you. All right, so you have the person who's the coder, who is the creator of the technology. They can do things with that phone. That phone is capable of things that most of us are completely unaware of. You know, you have some people that know how to take a picture, and then there's other people that realize there's a lot more that you can do with that camera app than just take a picture. There's a lot of adjustments that are available to you, a lot of options that you can access that not everybody who can use the camera can access because they don't have the knowledge or the understanding to take it that far. Meanwhile, there are people who, and we make fun of older people, but a lot of times an elderly person may have a smartphone and they know how to make a phone call and maybe they know how to text. But if you start throwing a bunch of other jargon at them, they haven't got a clue what you're talking about. They don't know all these ins and outs and shortcuts and things that most of us do who use it all the time. They have a very limited level of knowledge for that technology. Now, if you take that same person with very limited understanding of the technology, and they take their phone and you drop them in the middle of the rainforest with a completely isolated, what we would consider a primitive people group who have no technology, and that same person that we would look at and say, man, they really don't know how to use their phone, the fact that they pull a brick out of their pocket and it creates light and they know how to turn it on and they know how to message people that appear on that brick and they know how to make it play music and all these different things, to the primitive person who's never seen any of that technology, that person with just a very, very small amount of knowledge, they look like a god because the technology is so advanced to a person who has seen nothing that even the smallest amount of knowledge looks like an incredible magic to a primitive mind. When we look at people who are very, very intuitive and they've studied and they know how something, a program or so whatever technology, they know how it works, like forwards and backwards, we call them a whiz because that looks like wizards to us. It looks like magic to us because it's so far beyond our understanding of it. apply all of that to fantasy and science fiction and the magic systems that you're writing about. You've got to have characters who look at any use of that magic system as being otherworldly. You have to have people who know just enough about how to touch that thing to be dangerous to themselves and to others. And maybe in their village, that's a shaman or that's a wizard. But the actual understanding that that character has of how does this work, they may not have any clue. They shouldn't have any clue. You have other characters who understand enough about it to do the things they're trying to accomplish, but there should always be a depth behind the magic system or the technology that they acknowledge that, like, I have misconceptions maybe, or I know that it works this way, but they should be able to be shocked and surprised and say, well, it also works this way. It also has other applications that I never could have imagined. And you should always be able to show another character whose knowledge of it is way up here compared to what we thought was incredible. So basically, that the idea is that a magic system, it should not be all or nothing. It should not be, oh, I just am the chosen one and now I know it all and understand it all. I got this magic thing and now I understand it all. I had a dream and now I understand it all. There should always be a spectrum of understanding when it comes to how your characters interact with that magic. And the question of, well, who should understand everything about it? That's you. That's the author. You should know your magic system so well that there are no corners of it that have not been explored in your mind. You should understand everything about where it comes from, what it does, what it's capable of, who can use it, how can they use it, what are the consequences, what are the criteria that need to be met. All of that stuff you should know as you're building that world, but your characters and your writing will suffer if you create a Mary Sue character that just stumbles into perfect wisdom and perfect knowledge. It's way more interesting to show that characters are interacting with something that they don't understand. That's one of the things, to talk about the Godfrey universe, particularly by the time we get to on our timeline to the time of the Great Kings, to the Biophile era, and further on into the Black Star, which is the book series that is the final piece of that timeline. There are so many people who look at what we in our world we call the energy or the magic system is all built around this concept called O, and it's a type of energy, and what it is and where it comes from and how it can be interacted with is one of the main themes of our stories throughout all the millennia of our story. But there will always be people who think they know what it is, or who understand a piece of it and think that they're in control of it, when in fact there are entities behind it that understand it way better than they do. They are operating on misunderstandings, or they are using it in a misguided attempt to control or to influence, not realizing that they only understand enough of it to be dangerous. All right, so one of the best parts that we're excited about exploring in these stories is how do different characters touch this magic source that we call the O, and how do they interact with it on different levels. There's a whole spectrum of knowledge and understanding and engagement within that magic system that make for interesting storytelling. We can't wait to share it with you. I hope that if any of you are writing a fantasy story right now, that these are some of those things that you're considering. I also would like to say that if you've written anything and you would like it to be reviewed, if you'd like somebody to put some eyes on it, send it our way. We would love to check it out. We'd love to see kind of what you guys are up to, and provide some, if you want critique, if you want just if you just want some eyes to be on it. We'd be happy to read it. We'd be happy to discuss it with you, have you on the show if that's something you're interested in doing, and just get your world that you're creating out there and help you make it the best it could be. And hopefully, that if we all work towards being the best versions of ourselves and producing something worth having, the world of entertainment, comics, books, movies, whatever, it will only get better when we get away from the model of the CEOs who only care about the bottom line and the money, and get back to what works creatively, what makes an interesting story, what makes characters that people care about, and leave the business side of it out of the way and just get back to telling good stories that last forever. Like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Follow us here. Go to the godfrowuniverse.com website and join our mailing list. Go to legacycomics.com. That's comics with an X. And buy the Ashcan, the issue 0 Ashcan, which is the first little dipping your toes in the waters of Apollyon 20XX. The first volume of that graphic novel series will be coming out hopefully in the spring. And we've got so many other things coming out after that as well. So get on board the train here and join us for the ride.